So I guess when you watch Chef, one could kind of assume that it's a little bit autobiographical in nature from your filmmaking career. Obviously you started out doing smaller, more personal films, moved on to some bigger films that did well, some that maybe not so well,
Yes.
And now back to kind of your roots of doing something more intimate. Is that a fair assessment, I guess? And from that, when did you make the decision that I want to kind of do something smaller?
Well, it's partially true because I do definitely appreciate the autonomy of doing something small, which is really kind of what the movie's about. He goes from working in a restaurant that's very high profile where he doesn't have complete control over what he's cooking and doing, and then he opens up a small food truck where he could do whatever he wants. The movie business is a little different though, because if you want to make little movies, you could do them as much as you want. I like genre films too. I like effects films. I love, it's like I didn't feel compromised doing Iron Man or Cowboys and Aliens even that wasn't as successful, but I poured my heart and soul in it. I was never told to do something that I didn't feel like I was comfortable with. I've had very good relationships with the people who are hiring me. But I do have to say that there is an inherent frustration no matter what your creative field when you can't just make a decision and whatever you want happens. You're part of a committee. Mm-hmm. Especially the bigger the brand, the more people are involved. The more money on it. Yeah, exactly. More cooks in the kitchen. And unlike the guy in this movie, I go back and I'm going to do Jungle Book next, which might be the most technically ambitious film, where I'll be working with, if you count the artists and the people designing and doing the CG, with probably the biggest group of people that I've worked with. But I embrace that. I like that. A chef has the same kitchen whether it's a big restaurant or a small one, but a filmmaker, it's a whole different box of tools. And it's fun to vary things, but I hear what you're saying, and there definitely is part of me that always wants to have my voice come out in a pure way, and that's what's nice about being able to do a film like Chef, where I could really dial into that, and work with some of the same actors that I do on the big movies like Robert Downey and Scarlett Johansson. I got a couple Avengers in this one,
yes.
And it's fun to play with them without having to worry about all the technical stuff or the big doing a huge superhero movie.
There's a little bit, I guess, also commentary on the film industry as well, kind of metaphorically disguised here, where you kind of talk about, you can have really good food, really rich, really delicious, unique, risky type of dishes that people don't want. They want kind of the same thing. They want chicken fingers. How frustrating, I guess, can that be as a filmmaker to know that you're putting out something that you think is good, that they would like, but they want, brands. They want franchises.
I don't know that. I mean, there is something that the character I play says in the movie that I do think is true, which is like, if you serve people good food, that they'll like that too. Like you could play it really safe and give them something they'll like that's not risky. But if you take some chances, and by the way, when we did Iron Man, that was the thing. We hired a cast that was not a safe cast. Robert at that time heading up a family-friendly franchise, say that 3 times, family-friendly franchise, but heading that up at that time, it was a little bit of a risk. He was an unproven commodity. People knew he was talented, but you were resting an entire franchise on this guy's shoulders. Well, turned out it was the best bet Marvel ever made, and it's been paying dividends ever since with the Avengers films. And I think the other franchises all come out of that personality. But essentially casting an independent film cast in this movie, I don't think diminished its commercial appeal, but it did open it up to people who like talented actors and people with experience and a quality, a tonal, an ambition in tone as well, in the way the comedy's played and the way the story's told. So I think you could, ideally what you do is you present something that's of good quality but still accessible to everybody. And that was what was great about Shakespeare. Shakespeare we still study today, but the Onion Eaters, the Groundlings loved it too. They laughed at all the bawdy humor. So I think when you really do a good job with commercial art, which is essentially what film is, just like Maxfield Parrish would do, it's a beautiful painting, but you could still use it on, you could still use it on a calendar for a product, for an electrical company, I think art, in my mind, at best, there's no separation. You could do something. Chris Nolan could do a beautiful film with beautiful cinematography and strong message and emotion. I think what happens is people get scared or they get lazy, and they cut corners when they shouldn't. Why not make the movies as good as you possibly could? And I think my generation of filmmaker, as I see my peers, they're doing beautiful work. Most people really care. You know, the people who grew up on Star Wars realize that it's not like there's commercial movies and then there's awesome movies. You could have awesome, and you make twice as much money for the studios. So, you know, I think there's definitely an ambition out there, and people want to do it. And but there's always the temptation to play it safe or rush things. And you know, and thankfully, in the case of Chef, I could dial it back to a budget of a level where I could kind of just play some jazz and do something that's exciting to me, and then jump back into Jungle Book and do something with, again, great actors in a studio that understands creative partnership, but also is very protective and cares deeply about the way their brand is perceived. And so, but that's a balancing act I'm comfortable with, unlike the character in the movie.
All right. Thank you very much, man.